Hi, this is Jen with Jen's Ink Spot, and I'm here to show you a new collection from Frantic Stamper that is space themed. And I just think it's such a fun set that I think you'll find unique and fun to use. So starting with the set, and I apologize for my voice because I do have a cold. There are two stamp sets that are being released with this line. The first one is this image set, and it is a rocket, and there are 6 different windows that you can put inside the little cutout here. There's a planet, plumes of smoke, and lots of different options for planets, the Milky Way, things like that. There's dies that coordinate, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And then we also have this sentiment set that is a lot of fun. It has these cute little scripty sentiments, and then there's some of the bigger words that fit right inside of it. So, for example, my favorite sentiment, because I tell this to my kids, is I love you to the, and then there's a blank space and back. And then you can insert these words with the sentiment. So this one is, I love you to the moon and back. This is a very simple card that I made, but all I did on this card is use the stamp sets. So it's flat. I use the sentiments here, and then I chose to use the window that had the picture of the planet here in the window. Also, you'll see this moon stamp, but what I did for that is, here's the stamp. I took and I first used the back side of the stamp. This is the stamp that's just completely flat that you usually place on your block, but I put it on backwards. I inked up this part here and then stamped that on my card where I wanted it. And then I turned it over to the side that you would usually stamp on, put blue ink on there, and then stamped the outline and the little holes on the moon. There's several die sets that are in this release. The first one is this rocket launch set. Of course, this is the main one in the set. It has this little launch pad, which I find very unique. And then you have this rocket ship, and of course these are upside down, but they fit inside there perfectly. So it'd be just like it was getting ready to launch. You have a plume of smoke, which can also be fired depending on how you want to use it. Or you have this little fire trail here, so you can use either one. Because this inside piece cuts out, you can mix and match however you'd like. Also, these 3 little dots cut out, which also make it easy to mix and match. There's also this cute little flying saucer, and I love this one. It's just a fun little addition, something else that's pretty unique. It coordinates really well with the Monster Mashup stamp set that was released previously with the little monsters, and they just fit right inside that flying saucer just perfectly. So you can have so much fun using the images from that stamp set. Another die set that is part of this release is called Outer Space, and this one has lots of fun options with it. There's a sun. Here you have a moon, or it could be another planet. Here is the ring again, like I was telling you in the stamp set. It fits around this planet so that you can use it with or without the ring. I love that versatility option. There's a shooting star, collection of stars. There's a moon, and then there's this little Milky Way like galaxy type thing. And then one other set that's coming out with this, the Stitch Cloud Edgers. I like that there's this option. There are 3 different shapes. Your clouds can all look different. You can do different layers, and I'll show how I've used those on a card. This is one of my first cards that I made. I used this die from Frantic Stamper called Planet Earth. I love this die. There's also a die just like this, but it's a reverse cut. So it'll cut directly into your card without cutting out the circle. I first used distress inks on my blue so that it would be darker at the top. My rocket, the top of the rocket, when it die cuts, there's a little place that you can easily snip off if you want to make a separate colored nose cone. And then I also made different colors for the buttons. For the window, I die cut the rocket out of a blue cardstock, and then I used one of the windows to add the stripes. I used the clouds to make the clouds at the bottom of this card in layers, and I didn't adhere the tops of them so that they would have some dimension. And then I used both the plume of smoke and the fire for coming out of the rocket. I layered them on top of each other. And then the sentiment, "You are out of this world." I also added the star swirl and the grouping of stars in different places on the background. This is a similar card to that one. I used some of the same dies. I used the earth here again, and because when you cut the earth out, you can make two cuts with it. So I used the white as the large part here, and then the gray over here. I chose the star stamp for my window. And then for my background, I used the previously released Starfall Reverse Cut Die. Another one that you can use that's previously released is this Heartfall background. Here I made a Valentine card using the same idea that I used with the stars, except that I used the hearts instead. And I use the sentiment, "I love you to the moon and back." I use this little Milky Way galaxy die to make a swirl, kind of making it look like that's where the rocket trail had been. And then I cut this rocket out of pattern paper. Just kind of gave it a different look. I really like that. Then we also have a previously released Snowfall Reverse Cut. I found so many ways to use this die other than for snow. It makes a great background for space again. I did a girly theme card. I used the rocket launch pad on this card as well. For this card, I pulled out one of the Sunrays panels that we have. There's several. This is a Sunrays quilted card panel. There's another one called a Sunburst card panel. For this card, I used the corner Sunrays quilted card panel. This card was very, very simple. I wanted to show you a card that used all of the dies from the Outer Space set, and this one was inspired by a print I saw on Pinterest. I stamped this little rocket. I used each of the die cuts from that set on here. Here you can see the planet with a ring around it. And then I embossed part of my sentiment on top of the moon. This one uses the cute little UFO die set. And I showed you before how the UFO matches the monster stamp set so well. For the bottom, I used one of the Cityscape dies, and this one's San Francisco. I just cut it down here, and then I used one of the rays from the Sunburst card panel, and I die cut an ombre piece of paper for that to make it look like this tractor beam was coming down to get someone, and then the sentiment, "You are out of this world," goes perfect with the UFO. For this card, I used the launch pad, and I cut it out of a silver foil paper. And then I wanted it to make it look like the rocket was blasting off, so I adhered it to the top of my card and just trimmed off the top that I didn't need. Then when you open it up, it's a pop-up card. So I've used these pop-up bases dies, which is a set of 7 dies, and they're so much fun. I don't know how well you can see the dimension on this when you kind of open and close that card, but I used 2 of the stitch cloud dies to create my clouds here, and I adhered one to this little pop out base that I used with the die, and then I adhered the second directly to the back of my card. I popped up the rocket and the plume with one of the little dies. I'm hoping that you can see this. And then also the UFO as well with one of the little aliens inside. My sentiment I embossed on the front, and it says, "Out of this world birthday." So if you go from the front, 3, 2, 1, blast off, 2A, "Out of this world birthday" is what it says. Also for the background, I stamped the stars in Versamark I hope you enjoy this collection as much as I do. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think that you'll find that it's very versatile and there are a lot of options. Thank you for joining me today at Jen's Ink Spot.